are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and really delighted to welcome my guest this hour. We've got two heavyweights joining us now, Todd Belcore, civil rights attorney and executive director of Social Change Chicago, and Tiffany Raspberry, former deputy mayor of New York City. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you for being here. Let's go ahead and get into it. I want to start with birthright citizenship. This was a little bit of breaking news while we have been on the air, or really right before we went on the air. President Trump, he signed this new executive order, a couple of them, a pair of them, targeting so-called birth tourism and narrowing recognized exceptions to birthright citizenship, his second attempt after the Supreme Court struck down his broader first-term effort on June 30th, and that infamous 6-3 ruling defending the 14th Amendment. Trump himself called the ruling a, quote, very unfortunate decision, and said, quotes, we're making adjustments. One order would deny citizenship to children born to mothers who enter the U.S. for the sole purpose of giving birth here, while other targets children of people deemed alien enemies, foreign terrorists, and foreign agents. I've got to ask you, Todd, starting broad, what's the through line connecting this renewed attack on birthright citizenship and what should we make of this, especially given what we're told the law of the land is following that Supreme Court decision in June?
Yeah, this is nothing more than a thinly veiled effort to codify white supremacy, to make sure that the only people who are allowed to be here and should be here, according to what they're attempting to set as a legal precedent, are people that are qualified and determined to be qualified by white people. And of course, not only has that been roundly kicked to the curb by every matter of constitutional law and consideration and every precedent over the last 100 years, but that doesn't mean anything to the administration, doesn't mean anything to this current court in terms of what they're considering, although the court has stood up and fought against us to some degree. But you have to realize and have to figure, I'm sure there will be some sort of loophole that will continue to be needled at and figured, so there can be some, for lack of a better term, some sort of concession made to make it even harder for people who have birthed a child in this country to make sure they're able to stay and be around that child, protect that child, raise that child, do all the things that children need to fulfill their potential. So it's scary that this is happening so transparently and so corruptly, but at the same time, it's unsurprising. But this is another reason why people need to be on full alarm and hopping mad and doing something about it, because they're trying to take people's citizenship right in front of people without any abashed, ashamed, or any sort of effort to even hide it in any way. And that should be as alarming as anything we've seen of this administration.
I want to add another layer to this Head Start story. The Trump administration, they proposed significant changes to Head Start, the 60-year-old early education program for low-income families. And this would diminish federal standards and would give states and parents more control. That's what they're saying. The administration said it will cut the cap on administrative overhead spending from 15% to 5%, saving an estimated $2.2 billion. It plans to reinvest to create 200,000 more childcare spots. And advocates are pretty wary because the head of the National Head Start Association, they push back on fears that the program is being dismantled, saying that they just really want folks to know that Head Start is open. It's a formal rulemaking process, open for 60 days of public comment, and it could be 6 months to a year before anything actually changes. Tiffany, from your time in city government, when the federal government pulls back regulatory guardrails like this, who actually absorbs the risk? And is it cities and states or is it families themselves?
I think the risks are felt across the board. It's devastating to communities, it's devastating to school districts and to cities. To be quite honest, removing these regulations will be terrible because not every state is able to provide education at the same level. We know throughout our country that there are some states that children are reading far below grade level. And so we're now going to allow those individuals to set standards for early childhood learning.
Do you worry, as the former deputy mayor of, the biggest city in the country, do you worry about the far-reaching implications this could have in terms of state and local governments having to fill, the gap that the federal government would leave behind if they're successful in this effort?
Definitely. States will have to fill the gap. And already states have had to endure cuts over the past several years to early childhood and just basic education funding.
Yeah. Todd, when we think about birthright citizenship, again, it's been settled law since the 14th Amendment, ratified specifically for the babies of slaves. Yeah. What do you think this fight? Why do you think this fight keeps coming back? Even after the Supreme Court loss, and do you think there's any connection between this birthright citizenship action by the president and also this announcement of the pulling back from Head Start?
Yeah, every effort's been made, every opportunity has been taken advantage of to diminish, to destabilize, to dehumanize brown people, black people, or people from other countries who have other nationalities or ethnicities that they actually ascribe to. And I think it's not a secret. The reason why is we can make sure more of the people in power can stay in power, and they know the numbers aren't necessarily going to be in their favor. They already aren't in their favor, but everything that can be done to disenfranchise people, to make people worried to leave their house, to make people worried about going to poll. It's the same playbook, unfortunately, by Governor Wallace. So none of this is new in terms of why it's being done or what the expectations are in terms of its impact. But I think what is new now, we're living in an era where we're supposed to be evolved. We're living in an era where we're supposed to be a better society than this, and as you're saying, a more perfect union. So it's so startling that can kind of shock people into a level of apathy. And so I think it's important for shows like yours, like you're doing, to shine the brightest light on it, to make sure people know this is real. I know there's a lot of things coming out of the office every day, and people feel like they're inundated and burdened and weighed down by kind of all the crises that are just kind of waylaying us as a community. But this is one to pay attention to pay special attention to, because once your citizenship is taken, then further steps can be taken to continue to deprive people of their basic human rights, their basic Bill of rights, and of course their constitutional rights.
Tiffany, I know so much of your experience as the former deputy mayor of New York City, among other things. You've a lot of bona fides when it comes to governing. But right now, there are a number of folks on the left that are trying to get into office so that they can govern, so they can govern differently than Republicans, govern differently than this administration. If you were advising some of these left-leaning candidates, for state and local office who genuinely want to expand childcare access, who are absolutely PO'd that this administration is moving forward with an effort to gut federal protections for kids, what would you advise them? And what's the responsible thing to say versus the thing to say that's actually going to get people's attention and cut through the noise?
That's an excellent question, and thank you for that. I think no one goes to their state house or to Congress wanting to cut education funding. The hard reality is that budgets are limited. So I would advise our left-leaning, newly elected individuals spend the next few months familiarizing themselves with the budget process, so that they understand exactly what the limitations are that they're facing, and they're prepared to have real conversations and make hard choices in the upcoming year and legislative sessions.
Yeah. I mean, and some serious questions that need answers. It's wild to me that the administration as it relates to Head Start, they're saying, well, by doing this, we're going to reduce administrative overhead from 15% to 5%. They're also saying that they're going to save an estimated $2.2 billion. Well, my goodness, that's a drop in the bucket compared to what we're spending in Iran on a weekend. It's a drop in the bucket compared to what Elon Musk and his DOGE team said that they had saved taxpayers. A lot of folks sort of disputing those numbers. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But Todd, I mean, is it just me, or is this a lot of fuzzy math and a lot of political theater, coming out of the administration with, unfortunately, real on the ground impact?
Yeah, no credible argument can be made for defunding early childhood education. I mean, like you said, this is basically paperclip money by government standards. And the return on investment is absolutely immense. I mean, based on different studies, it's anywhere from 5 to 15 times the money back in terms of um, taxes going into the government based on people having a better education and better potential jobs to put into the economy, but also not, engaging in law enforcement, being incarcerated, and all these different benefits that are very clear and apparent just by investing in early childhood education. So any effort, any reason, those are bipartisan, well-known surveys and data sets. Those aren't things from left-leaning or even right-leaning centerpieces. They're just facts. So any justification used to do this has to be rooted in something that's not about finances and is not about children. It's about actually weakening our communities, and certainly that's what this does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, for a parent listening right now, Tiffany, who relies on Head Start, or an immigrant family who's worried about their next child's citizenship status, what should they actually be doing right now? And are you aware of, any organizations or any, tools or resources that are out there that people can turn to understand what their options are?
On the early childhood learning, if I were a parent of a small child right now, I would be familiarizing myself with my local Department of Education or public school system. I would understand how policies are voted on and how educational standards are passed. I would find similar allies and make sure that we had a role in establishing the standards of early childhood learning. And for families of children born in this country, I think that it's hard to suggest what people should do. Each city and state might have different resources available, so I would definitely seek out legal representation. But as these things change moment by moment, day by day, it's really hard to understand what is happening and to give good, real, rooted advice.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot coming at people, and we are going to continue to follow this story and stories like it, because there are a lot of people out there who are trying to figure out what to do and where to go next. Todd, some of those people include some of the Haitian immigrants, where they've lost their TPS status, and there are folks that argue that, well, technically it's not officially lost yet. Hold on tight. Uh, what would you say? What would you say to uh, families of Haitian immigrants, Haitian migrants that are listening right now? What would you say to them in light of the latest news on birthright citizenship?
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear what's coming around the bend. It's very clear the intentions, and it's very clear the communities that are being targeted. So our Haitian community members, brothers and sisters, should be on full watch and making sure that anything they're doing televised, frankly, meaning like when you're interacting with law enforcement, interacting with anyone, making sure that you have some sort of evidence of it. Because people are being taken away in a direct deprivation of their constitutional rights. There's no question about that. And if you're trying to represent somebody, all the evidence you can gather, every bit of shred of encounter that you can actually see, feel, and hear will go a long way in terms of any sort of jury that you eventually have to bring this to. Because I'm confident as these threats are taking place, there are limits. There is a guardrail. There's a third rail that I don't think even the Supreme Court will go past. So I do think if people are vigilant and aren't going out by themselves, I mean, having to take precautions that we shouldn't have to even be discussing in this country, making sure you're going out and with a buddy system and videotaping things, stuff that should be outside the pale of our even consciousness. But just to make sure that everyone gets home safely and our community members are reunited with their loved ones, that's what we have to do now more than ever.
Yeah, when we come forward, we've got a lot more ground to cover, including a defense contractor's political fundraising and a government watchdog report that just blew up Elon Musk DOGE numbers. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai. I'm really delighted to be in conversation with Todd Belcore, the civil rights attorney, who is also the fearless leader, executive director of Social Change Chicago, and Tiffany Raspberry, the former deputy mayor of New York City. Really appreciate having you all with us to help us separate the fact from the fiction. Let's talk about this this DOGE savings claim, because Elon Musk might be a Pinocchio here. Well, we can take might out there. He's looking more like a Pinocchio with this new Government Accountability Office report that found that Elon Musk's DOGE service consistently overstated its savings and online posts, taking credit for lease cancellations that were initiated before the group even existed. DOGE's public wall of receipts, you remember that? They claim that $215 billion in total savings. Well, the Government Accountability Office examined $110 billion of that tied to contracts and grants and leases, and the findings were brutal. The findings were so brutal that 108 of the 264 leases that DOGE claimed credit for were already in the process of being terminated before DOGE was established. And of the over 13,000 contracts that DOGE said it terminated, nearly 2,000 actually were not terminated at all. One outlet's review of the audit found that the Government Accountability Office could only find support for roughly 4% of DOGE's claimed savings. Well, Democratic Senator Gary Peters of Michigan, who requested the audit, he didn't mince words, saying that Elon Musk and the Trump administration claimed billions of dollars in savings it could not substantiate, took credit for work already underway, and refused to show its work. The Government Accountability Office said that DOGE never even responded to the watchdog's questions during the audit. Just sticking with this accountability theme for a second, there's a new Guardian exclusive on Andrew, the co-founder of Palmer Luckey, revealing that Luckey has donated $5.9 million to Republicans and bundled additional fundraising, all while his defense company reaps billions in Pentagon contracts. Some of them sole source, meaning awarded without competitive bidding. Now, Tiffany, you have worked inside government, and you know that when a single donor's company is landing sole source federal contracts while they're personally bankrolling the party in power, that's a scandal. Or is it just how Washington works right now? Is that what we're supposed to accept?
I think that anytime someone receives a sole source contract, it should be examined, right? Because processes exist for a reason. Unless we're facing a major dire situation, emergency, these large contracts should go through the formal process.
They should go through the formal process, but these contracts aren't. And, you know, I hear, Senator Peters sort of calling attention to it, but, it doesn't seem like it has the energy that it should. we're living in a time where public trust in government is at a record low. And this is part of the reason why. It's not just that, people are cheating and stealing and not being honest with taxpayers, but when they are called out, it seems like a collective sort of shrug of the shoulders, just another day in Washington. Uh, what is it going to take for us to break through that, Tiffany?
I think that this happens more than people understand, and that's why there's not an outrage from the elected officials in Congress. It's important that people are beginning to pay attention and to understand how money is flowing in Washington and calling members out.
Yeah, I mean, we got to do more, but we also have to have a plan for what we're going to do when folks on the left sweep in power. No, Todd. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, we're seeing, corruption like we have never seen or like we haven't seen in a very long time. That's one thing. But the other thing is, okay, so when you're in power, what are you going to do differently?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's no question that no party has a monopoly on corruption. I mean, certainly there's the issue of poor money management on both sides of the aisle, and there's instances that go all throughout history. So it's not really necessarily as much about party ideology as much as it's about integrity. And I think at the end of the day, any voter needs to make sure, no matter what district, what community, what ward they're in, that they're paying attention to these very processes that Deputy Mayor is referring to regarding both budgeting, because that's where the real sauce is, that's where the real details are, that's where the real sausage is really made. But also in letters of the law in terms of legislation that's passed to make sure people are clear on not only where's the money coming from in terms of investing in this conversation in the first place, but who's benefiting, and all those things. Where that's the wall of receipts. So it is very clear, kind of the very corrupt and unfortunately blatant relevance and connection between, giving millions of dollars to a party, but it's also not a new thing. So I do encourage anyone who's running for office or anyone who's trying to be involved in the process to rabble rouse, certainly, but also make sure whatever you're rabble rousing about, that you don't stop examining these issues when the candidate of your choice gets into office, that you continue to hold them accountable no matter what. Because there's something about those seats. There's something about that house. There's something about Congress where over time, even if folks who, the purest hearts have some issues that they run into. So it's on us as voters, as advocates, as activists to make sure we continue to hold our feet to the fire, protect them to some degree from making bad decisions by putting that pressure on them so they can blame us for maybe pushing back against donors who may otherwise feel inclined to kind of squeeze the pins on them. But this is a time that there's so many things going on. It's hard to kind of pinpoint just one or two things that activate. But the one thing I'm always pushing is kind of our Lift Every Voice campaign. And that's making sure everyone's getting out to vote. And getting people out to vote doesn't start in October or November. That's something we're doing right now. Getting people's pledges and commitments to vote, getting a full database and understanding of what are people's barriers to voting to help people overcome those well in advance. So whether it be, threats from ICE or whatever it may be, to kind of commandeer of momentum and really instill fear that there's a well-prepared, well-oiled machine in place to protect people and ensure that no one's denied the chance to have their voice heard through the polls.
Yeah, and I want to double click on that. I want to encourage our leaders, learners, and listeners to go to iwillvote.com to check your voter registration. Just go ahead and you can do it right now while you are listening to us or streaming us, assuming that your hands are not on the steering wheel while you're driving an afternoon drive time, because we don't want no accidents. That's one very important tool, is voting in every election. That's not just November 2026. It's every special election. It's every midterm election, every presidential election, every single election, because we know how hard some pretty dark forces out there are working to keep us from being able to do that. But Tiffany, I want to go back to something you said earlier about how common sort of waste, fraud, and abuse is in government. I'm wondering, what's your message to some of the donor activists out there that may donate a lot of money uh, when it comes to supporting uh, this candidate or that candidate? But if we zoom out and we look at sort of our system, our democratic system, we need strong watchdog groups that are going to report uh, and advance the public interest as well. And it's not lost on me. I'm sure not lost on you. There are a lot of institutions right now where they've taken a hit when it comes to public trust. And so, what's your message to donor activists out there that may not ordinarily support watchdog groups? It seems to me that we're living in a time where watchdog groups are needed more than ever.
So I want to take a step back. I think that a lot of contracts that are passed and issued in government may have a purpose at one point that no longer exists at another point, but the contract stays active. So I want to be careful with how we talk about waste and fraud, because sometimes waste comes not because it's intentional, but just because government is a huge bureaucracy. And as individuals come and go out of government, they lose track and perspective on what's happening in the broader structure. But with that said, everyone wants to find ways for government to save and to streamline costs. There's no question. And so we need to figure out how we can evaluate these contracts on the local, state, and federal level in real time so that we can adjust. And some of the contracts are written in a way that it may commit the government for 5, 10, 15 years with no ability to get out of that contract. I've always been troubled by that.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of folks who are listening to us now or streaming us now, they're troubled by it too. Todd, in our remaining minutes, from a civil rights and accountability lens, does the DOGE audit, does it change how you think about the broader deregulatory push that we're seeing this week from birthright citizenship to Head Start to government spending oversight itself?
Unfortunately, this is confirming my suspicions in the first place that this is just a different way to have political retribution and target entities and institutions that are bedrock to our communities, whether it be our educational institutions, whether it be our environmental institutions, things designed to make sure we have the most basic protections of and have something tantamount to a quality of life that allows us to have a community, that allows us to live, breathe, and read. And the fact that those things are even being attacked, it shows that there's nothing that's off limits. And hiding it behind the need to have cuts and efficiency, when you know things like Head Start yield the best return on investment of any type of investment that you can make as a government, and hiding it behind things like removing birthright citizenship, which is basically the foundation of this country, it just shows the true intent of this administration, which is vile. And I think that sort of rage, that sort of discomfort, we need to make sure we harness that and motivate one another to get people out to vote more than ever before, to overcome the opposition, to overcome the obstruction, overcome the guaranteed harassment, to ensure that people get into office that can really do the things that our communities need and deserve and uphold all the things that this country is known for to become a more perfect union.
Our thanks to Todd Belcore and Tiffany Raspberry. I can't thank you both enough for breaking it down for us today. Folks, you should follow the work of Todd with Social Change Chicago and Tiffany's ongoing work in New York civic life. We appreciate you both. Please come back again soon.
Thank you for having us.
When we come forward, a story about police department surveillance cameras and a leaked playbook that you need to hear about. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.